I wanted to echo what you said. I started out, I guess, in high school. I saw Citizen Kane, and it just kind of blew my mind. And I said, I want to do that. I don't know how I did any of that, but I want to do something like that. And so I grew up in Nebraska, and I went to school at the University of Nebraska. And at the time, there was no film program. So I just took everything I could take that I thought related to film. So I was a theater major, and then I took photography, and I took journalism classes, and I took writing, and music, and everything that I could that would sort of feed that. And once I graduated, I got a job at a theater in Oregon, and while I was an intern there, and while I was working there, I stumbled upon a company that made educational films and safety and training films, and I started working for them for free. And my first film was called Camping Safety, and so it was that kind of horrible thing. But it was people making a movie, and I got to plant poison ivy, and I was in Hollywood, sort of. But from there, I met, just sort of working on the set and doing things like getting coffee and planting poison ivy, I met the editor and asked if I could come around and see what he was doing with the footage we were shooting. And he was just a really nice man who I said that'd be fine. And I started to come, like every afternoon at 3, I'd come and I'd work for a couple hours and just sort of learn what he was doing. And he referred me to my first job, paying job down in Los Angeles. And so that was my sort of strange path to get into the door here. And I started working on a lot of terrible low-budget movies that all had the word war or blood in the title. And but I got to work with some nice, talented people, and I guess every job I ever got sort of came from a job before it. So someone I met on that first film, I called me to work on the second film, and someone who was working down the hall from that film called me to work on the next job. And slowly the movies got better, and the work got more interesting, and so I've gotten to work with a lot of really great directors. And I was working as an apprentice editor and assistant editor, and that's where I worked with Milos Forman and Michael Mann and Judd Apatow and Adam McKay and Jodie Foster and Danny DeVito, and just a lot of really great people I was really lucky to work with. And now I'm working as an editor doing independent stuff on documentaries and independent features. And so it's perseverance, and it's caring, and I think I know that, the people I've worked with, I've usually worked with more than once, because you want to work with people that are easy to work with and who are care and passionate. And I know when I'm hiring someone, it's do I want to spend 12 hours a day with this person? And it matters, and that I guess that's the only advice that I have beyond it. The only advice that I never sort of learned in a book was that people want to hang out with. I'm not making
nice people.
Nice, humble.
Nice people. Thank you.
Nice, humble people. Yeah.
Nice, yeah. So that's it. I'm not used to talking.
About something about that.
Let me see. I don't know if I have a funny story.
Pretty sad.
Or sad. What? I guess one thing about the 40-Year-Old Virgin, because it was the first time Judd Apatow was doing something like that on that scale, and it was Steve Carell's first starring role. They kind of found they didn't really know, not that they didn't know what they were doing, but they started out shooting a much broader comedy, and Steve Carell's character was a lot more of a nerd from a Saturday Night Live sketch, and it wasn't very funny because it wasn't relatable. and they in the editing room, Brent White, the editor, who had worked with Judd on during Freaks and Geeks, what he kept gravitating to was the more real moments, and I mean, as real as it could get in that world, and he showed what he was doing to Judd, and Judd responded to that and brought Steve Carell in the editing room to show him what we were putting together, and so it became a thing where they let Seth Rogen and everyone around him be wacky, but Steve Carell was more relatable or normal, and I think found the heart of the movie because of that, and I was just really impressed that they were able to not change course, but to be open to seeing where it was going and follow that flow. That was one thing I remember, and another was just what Steve Carell was super nice guy, and just really good at, he didn't, and I think Will Ferrell's the same way, like in Talladega Nights. They didn't need to be the funniest person in the room. That if John C. Reilly or Sacha Baron Cohen or Jane Lynch or whoever was around them was getting more laughs, that only made them look better. And it didn't. I think some comedians would no, it's my film. It has to be about me, and they were just not like that at all.
Yeah.
And I think that energy just makes the film better.
Yeah, that plays into the whole like be nice and things work out kind of philosophy, right?
Yeah. And I also think the studio didn't know what they had in the movie, because there was so much improvisation, and there was this 90-page script, but they were shooting what they would do, they would shoot what was on the page, and then once they had it, then they would keep playing, and a lot of it was, some of it was improvising in the moment, but they'd done a lot of rehearsing, and so a lot of it was coming back to improv that they'd done in rehearsals.
Yeah.
And so Judd would be off camera and say, okay, now do the bit about Kelly Clarkson, or now do the bit about this, and they were just all really, Paul Rudd and those guys were so good at working in that mode, and it was a blast to watch, and the studio kind of just thought, we don't know what this is, until we had a first preview with an audience, and it played really well, and then there was a fire alarm in the theater, and so we evacuated it and had to come back about 20 minutes later, and it still played well, and the scores they got back were great, but no one trusted them because there was the fire alarm, so we didn't really know, and it was, and then I think it was a movie that it made some money, but it grew on home video and cable is where it found a bigger audience and set us out on a path of dumb comedies that, for better or for worse.
My name's Chad. I'm currently an assistant producer at PBS SoCal, officially known as KOCE. I've only been there about a year, so I can't really talk about the experience so much in the industry, but my journey was kind of interesting. I started as not professionally, but I was a musician in high school and college. I really liked music, and I kind of got to the point where I was getting frustrated with my ability I could hear stuff in my head, but I couldn't play it with my hands, so I found other musicians that were better than I was, and I could kind of tell them, hey, play it like this, and this sounds cool. So I did a little bit of producing in college and recording. I had a nice 4-track recorder, and this was fun, and my parents were like, please finish college, we're tired of paying for what you're doing. So I started studying languages. It kind of goes along with sound, and so I got my BA in Spanish, and I minored in linguistics, and after college I went to Spain and I taught English in a bilingual elementary school for a year, and it was the best experience of my life. It was absolutely amazing. My visa ran out, and I was either had to marry a Spaniard or come home, and I decided to come home. I worked a little bit, and believe it or not, a liberal arts degree doesn't exactly open a million doors to professional professional world for you. So I started looking at classes at Saddleback, and I was like, I really like doing the audio stuff in college. Maybe I can get like a real education in it. So the audio class, you had to take CTVR 101, and that's where I met Maria and Hiro. And I went through the TV rotation, and it clicked. It's like, this is for me. This is what I should have been doing 10 years ago when I was undergrad. So I went through, like I said, the TV program, and I took editing with Hiro as well. And that was huge for me. I think, where am I going? Editing. So after the editing class, I asked Hiro, like, what should I do to work in the industry? Because I have my degree already. I'm ready to start working. He said, internships. You gotta either know someone, have that uncle, or get in the door. So he told me to start looking for internships. And then he recommended KOCE because it was in Orange County and it was a TV studio. I applied there, and because of my background in editing, they started me as an intern. They started paying me full-time last summer. Part-time last summer. And then I got full-time, I believe, in November last year, and it's just kind of been going from there. So that is what I have done. I wanted to kind of echo what they've said. The biggest thing, aside from, I think editing, even if you're not an editor, I feel like it opens a ton of doors right now in particular. At least, I don't want to say entry level, but kind of that lower rung starting. If you don't want to be production, this is a total, or even if you do want to be production, but you're having trouble finding work, I think there's a lot of work in post as well, specifically in editing, assistant editing. I wouldn't be where I was if I didn't have the knowledge and the abilities that I have to edit. I think there was one other thing. The other thing was communication is just huge. There's just so much. Oh man, I don't remember. I wanted to say something about that, but I can't remember. But yeah, showing up, just being there. It is important to be liked and to be a nice guy, but it's unfortunate, but there are people that have that attitude, but they still do get work just because they do show up and they're always there. If you show up and you're that nice guy, the sky's just going to be the limit for you. So just put everything into it, show up, be a nice guy, and you can do it. You'll have a good time. So, wow.
Hi everybody, Coco. I work for Disney Broadcast Service.